When I first saw her, my boots were full of holes from walking 43 days from Texas. What sticks with me most is her grunting as she tried to lift a fence post on her own, as if she'd sooner die than accept assistance. I go by Samuel Hayes, and back in the autumn of 1878, I was a wanderer in the Colorado Territory. For 17 years, I'd been moving from ranch to ranch, never sticking around long enough to call any place home. Everything shifted that October day because a woman refused to ask for aid. Her name was Catherine Morrison, a 8-year-old widow for 2 years. Her spouse Richard passed away from an infected scratch barbed wire that turned gangrenous. She now faced 50 acres on her own, fighting to prevent it from falling to ruin. When I stepped forward to assist with that fence, she was wary but in need of me. And when she gazed at my rough hands and declared, "I could use a strong man like you," something cracked open within me. Something I believed was gone began to pulse again. This tale is about a broken wanderer discovering peace and a grieving widow finding a second chance at love. It recounts how two individuals built something that endured for 36 years. The ranch came into view around 3 in the afternoon. The gate sagged, the fences buckled, the barn shed its boards. This was a homestead slowly disintegrating. That's when I spotted her, next to a fallen fence section, grappling with 2 wooden posts and trying to raise them. Her blue dress was torn and soiled, and her hands bore cuts from the rough wood. Exhaustion was etched deeply into every contour of her face. The sound of my horse made her straighten. She reached to her side, not for a firearm, but as if grounding herself. For a moment, her eyes betrayed fear. I was a stranger on horseback, and she was a solitary woman on a remote property. I called out, "Need a hand?" I dismounted slowly. "I'm not after handouts," she replied, her voice shaky from weariness and humiliation. "It's not charity," I said. "It's a trade you need those lifted. I need a place for tonight. We both benefit." She eyed me warily, judging if I was worthy of trust. Eventually she nodded. "I'm Catherine Morrison. My husband Richard owned this spread. He's been dead 2 years," she stated flatly, as if reporting a fact rather than confessing ongoing sorrow. "Tools are in the barn." Over the afternoon's work, I learned about Richard. A barbed wire cut on his palm, the sort of injury that occurs countless times each season on any ranch. In a remote frontier with no doctor within 50 miles, it turned gangrenous. She tended him through 3 weeks of fever, watching the infection creep up his arm like a living thing consuming him inside. When the fever finally claimed him, she said it was a release. We toiled until sunset, speaking little beyond necessary directions. Yet something was brewing between us. A mutual recognition, 2 souls who grasped the weight of lone struggle. At nightfall, Catherine invited me indoors. The cabin was tiny but tidy, everything arranged with precision, despite the overwhelming task of one person tending 50 acres. She cooked supper with meager supplies, beans with salt pork and bread baked that morning. After we ate, she served strong coffee. Catherine looked me straight in the eye. "You're not from around here," she said. "That's not a question, ma'am. I've been on cattle drives from Texas, heading north and south with the seasons. How long do you intend to stay?" I answered honestly, "A day or 2, then I usually move on." She fell silent for a while. I could see her wrestling with mixed feelings. Pride, necessity, fear, all tangled together. Here was a woman who'd mastered self-reliance because she'd had no alternative. "I can't offer much pay," she finally said. "The ranch barely yields enough to live. But I have a cabin out back where the previous hired hand stayed. I can feed you if you're ready to work. I need help with the fences. The barn roof is about to fail, and the horses require proper attention." She paused, realizing she was overwhelming me. "I can't afford much. I know that's unappealing." "How much?" I inquired. $15 a month plus meals." $15 a month was practically nothing. A decent hired hand made $30 or $40. But I wasn't after money, I was after a place to stop fleeing. I told her I'd remain till winter's end. "This ranch has potential, Catherine. With effort, it could thrive." The mention of her name shifted her expression. She wasn't accustomed to being treated as an individual. Hearing her own name grounded her, affirming she was more than a predicament to fix. Together, she whispered, savoring the unfamiliar word. That night, for the first time in 17 years, I slept in the back cabin and felt a sense of belonging. Over 6 months, we settled into a routine. Rise before sunrise, labor until dusk, then eat, sleep, and do it all again. Gradually, we reshaped the ranch. We mended fences piece by piece, mended the barn roof, and the horses grew healthier, their ribs fading. The cattle gained strength. Catherine had an intimate understanding of the land unlike anything I'd witnessed. Catherine could interpret the dawn sky's signs, identify overgrazed pastures, and spot horses that required delicate care. My contribution was physical strength and tool expertise. Together, we surpassed what we could achieve individually. One November afternoon, as we enlarged the pasture, Catherine mapped out the positions for new fence posts. I dug holes when she suddenly paused, turned, and softly inquired, "Why haven't you left? Where else would I go? You said you'd move on, but it's been 6 months." Honestly, I had no desire to depart. For the first time as an adult, I inhabited a place that seemed to require my presence, not merely for labor, but for companionship. "I'm not leaving," I declared, then asked, "Do you wish me to go?" "No," she whispered, nearly inaudible. "I don't." So I stayed that evening, and Catherine invited me to join her on the porch. The sunset painted the mountains in shades of orange and pink. We remained quiet for an extended period. "I was terrified," Catherine eventually admitted. "Afraid of eternal loneliness, of failing to run the ranch, of dying without experiencing love again." I grasped her hand silently, conveying that her solitude had ended. A week after, during fence repairs in the same spot where I'd first lent a hand, I kissed her. The chilly afternoon had Catherine trembling, so I draped my jacket over her. She gazed upward, her eyes blending vulnerability, hope, and fear. I leaned in gradually, and she remained still. Certain of her desire, I kissed her softly, a gentle act that was simultaneously a query and a response. As we separated, Catherine pressed her forehead to mine. "Stay," she murmured. "Please, stay." I vowed I'd never leave. We didn't hurry to wed. Catherine carried deep wounds from loss, while my own scars came from a life of drifting. We required time to believe in the authenticity of our bond. Yet after more than a year together, I grew convinced that this woman embodied my sense of home. I relocated to the main cabin, and we began outlining the ranch's future. Catherine would sketch on paper scraps, detailing her ideas for improved pasture rotation. Her intellect regarding horse breeding astonished me. She didn't merely conceptualize the land, she envisioned it. One evening, she shared that she wished to breed quality horses, like her father did back east before I married Richard. Morgans with outstanding temperaments, their lineage was extraordinary. However, the war altered everything. Richard prioritized cattle for fast profit, so we raised cattle. After his death, I was too exhausted to dream. "We can manage both," I suggested. "We'll keep cattle for income while also breeding horses. Your expertise paired with my labor can create something remarkable and enduring here." Her eyes brightened as if I'd authorized her to hope anew. It was an expression I'd never witnessed, pure delight interwoven with potential. In the spring of 1879, we bought an excellent breeding mare from a rancher near Denver. Through her father's former horse breeding contacts, Catherine had ties, and that mare served as the cornerstone. We acquired a quality stallion and began constructing the basis for a horse enterprise that would gain esteem across Colorado territory. 3 months on, Catherine presented me with a ring, her mother's gold, plain and smooth by years. Her mother died when Catherine was 16, yet she'd concealed the ring all that time. She never revealed it to Richard, reserving it for a meaningful occasion. Her proposal wasn't verbal. One night, she placed the ring in my hand and said, "If you're staying, I want it known publicly. I desire everyone to understand that you belong to me." I put the ring on immediately, without a second thought. A traveling preacher married us in February 1880, a plain day when snow capped the mountains. No guests attended, only us, the preacher, and the horses in the corral serving as witnesses. We required no extravagance. We possessed something greater: tranquility and one another. By 1884, 5 years into our marriage, time had passed. Our horse breeding venture flourished. The standing we established through Catherine's expertise and my diligence extended across the territory. Customers arrived from adjacent states, inquiring about our stock. It was then that 3 children entered our lives. An Apache raid hit a tiny settlement 30 miles south. Michael, 7, Joseph, 5, and Sarah, 4 survived by concealing themselves in a root cellar during the assault. Their parents and 2 siblings perished. No relatives stepped forward, no government aid existed, and no safety net was available. They were isolated when Catherine learned of their plight. She didn't pause, didn't consult me, didn't assess expenses, or reflect on our still developing life. "We're fetching those children," she stated simply. "Catherine, I don't care. We have resources, room, and affection to offer. That's what counts. Those kids have lost everything. The least we can do is provide them a home." The legal process was intricate. It required weeks of coordination with territorial officials, but by spring 1884, they moved in with us. Initially, Michael remained silent, deeply shaken by his experiences. Joseph, on the other hand, was furious, his tiny frame brimming with anger. For the first month, Sarah hardly uttered a word, yet Catherine possessed a remarkable talent for soothing. She approached them gently, without pressure, simply being there, and allowed them to assist with the horses, an activity that appeared to ease their anxieties. When nightmares struck, and they occurred frequently, she would embrace them. Her patience was so profound it pained me to see. After 12 months, they started flourishing. Michael displayed Catherine's sharp intellect and business acumen, carefully observing her bookkeeping and persistently inquiring about each choice she made. Joseph inherited my natural touch with horses, patient, instinctive, and quietly self-assured. Sarah embodied the finest traits of us both, her mother's foresight and her father's dedication to labor. By 1893, after 15 years of marriage, the ranch prospered. We meticulously managed 60 acres, raised 200 cattle, and ran a horse breeding enterprise admired throughout Colorado. At 22, Michael handled the commercial aspects with exceptional brilliance. 20-year-old Joseph oversaw the horses, earning renown for outstanding husbandry. 19-year-old Sarah intended to wed a young rancher from the adjacent valley, a decent man who grasped the soil and cherished industriousness. One dusk, Catherine and I observed the sunset together from the porch. "Do you ever second-guess our choice?" she inquired. "Remaining here, we might have pursued another path." "Moved elsewhere?" "No," I replied plainly. "This is precisely where I belonged, right here with you, constructing an enduring legacy. Creating a family," she said, squeezing my hand. No further words were necessary, yet 1,895 proved harsh. 16 years into our union, a drought struck, the most severe in 20 years. The stream reduced to a mere drip. Meadows became arid dust, and grass transformed into brittle stalks incapable of feeding livestock. We observed our cattle wasting away. Tough choices loomed, which beasts to retain and which to offload at dreadful rates. The horses, meticulously bred over years of effort, required strict water allotments. Each choice seemed to gradually dismantle our creation. Catherine experienced sleepless nights. I would discover her on the veranda at 3 a.m., gazing at the parched earth, her visage gaunt with anxiety. Without a word, I'd take a seat next to her, simply being a presence. She was someone who had already suffered immense losses: her father, her mother during childhood, and her first spouse. I sensed her terror that even the land might be confiscated. Around half a year into the drought, she uttered a statement that alarmed me. "You should go," she declared. "Gather what you've gained and depart. I won't burden you with blame for this land's demise." I cupped her face in my palms and met her gaze squarely. "Hear me, Catherine. This is no longer solely your ranch. It belongs to both of us, our ranch. I am not going anywhere, neither now nor ever. We'll survive this collectively." "But what if we fail?" she questioned, her voice cracking. "What if we lose all? What if I've pulled you into disaster?" "Then we lose together," I replied, "and we rebuild together. We don't surrender. We don't flee. We've confronted impossibilities previously. We'll confront this as well." Tears flowed, followed by profound sobs she had suppressed for months. I embraced her as she wept, repeatedly vowing that we'd confront this jointly and that I wouldn't abandon her. And we succeeded. I excavated wells deeper than any I had previously encountered. The initial 3 attempts failed. We struck rock with no result. However, on the 4th shaft, at depths I deemed impossible, we discovered water-cool, pristine water that felt miraculous. We constructed reservoirs to harvest each raindrop. We located subterranean springs by observing areas where soil remained marginally wetter and where certain vegetation thrived a bit more vigorously. We moved the surviving cattle to ranch sections where hidden springs sustained tiny grassy areas. Michael assisted in commercial choices regarding retention and sale. Joseph collaborated with me on the irrigation systems, mastering methods I had acquired from seasoned veterans. With time, even Sarah, now wedded but frequent visitor, aided her mother in household management with limited water supplies. The drought finally ended in the spring of 1897. After almost 2 years, gentle, consistent rains arrived, and the terrain gradually revived. Our cattle numbers had dwindled, and earnings fell, yet we endured. Our bond, challenged by authentic adversity, grew indestructible. That's when genuine comprehension dawned. Love doesn't entail evading difficulties. It involves confronting them jointly, continuously selecting your spouse even when the decision proves tough. By our 36th anniversary in 1914, I was 75, and Catherine reached 70. Following the drought, the ranch rebounded and flourished beyond our wildest dreams. Our horse breeding enterprise garnered admiration across 3 regions. While not affluent by Eastern standards, we possessed stability, ease, and a cherished treasure, a life we jointly erected piece by piece. However, around 1912, Catherine's perpetually boundless vitality gradually started to wane. Ascending the porch steps left her breathless. Midday she would pause, resting for extended intervals to regain composure, and I strove to avoid anxiety. Yet her motions betrayed the truth. In autumn 1913, I demanded that we summon a physician from Denver. He conducted a thorough examination, using his stethoscope to listen to her heart, then delivered his verdict with soft conclusiveness. "Mrs. Hayes, your heart has become weakened," he announced. "This is typical among women your age who have led physically demanding lives. You require additional rest beyond your current routine. Steer clear of abrupt physical effort and avoid stress." Catherine received this information as she always handled distressing news. She responded with pragmatism and poise, yet I detected dread in her gaze. Not a terror of death, but of turning into a liability, of forfeiting her value. "I'm still capable of working," she promptly insisted. "You simply must allow your children to assist more," the doctor stated emphatically. "You have established a remarkable heritage. Permit them to advance it." Thus, we gradually shifted roles. Catherine increased her oversight while reducing her labor. Michael assumed full control of the enterprise. Joseph assumed responsibility for the horses. Yet Catherine continued to walk the grounds, inspect the livestock, and make key decisions. This was more challenging for her than physical labor had been the sensation of retreating, of no longer being indispensable. In the spring of 1914, we sat together on the porch. The ranch hummed with life. Our kids and grandkids were tending the land, continuing our legacy. The horses were robust and thriving. The cattle were plump. "I've been considering something," Catherine said, her voice softer than I'd ever heard. "What is it?" I asked, grasping her hand. "That day you paused to aid me with defense. I believe it was the most significant day of my existence, surpassing even my marriage to Richard, surpassing everything." "Why?" I inquired, though I already knew the reason. "Because that was the moment my life truly started," she explained. "Prior to that, I was merely existing, going through the motions. I was waiting for death. But when you halted, when you extended assistance, when you remained, that's when I truly began to live." I gently squeezed her hand. "You provided me with a home, Catherine. You transformed a shattered wanderer into a complete person. You gave me a purpose to cease fleeing. Perhaps we are both thankful," she uttered with a faint smile. "Perhaps that's the essence of true love. 2 individuals thankful for one another, repeatedly choosing each other." That night, we lay in bed together, and I held her tightly. Her breathing was a bit strained, as it had been the past year, yet her heart thumped steadily against my chest. We didn't make love. We were too aged, too weary, but we embraced with the tenderness of two people. They had constructed a life together and fully appreciated its value. I remained awake most of the night, hearing her slumber, aware that time was limited. I had lived sufficiently to grasp that all valuable things are fleeting, yet we had enjoyed 36 years, more than what many receive, more than I ever dared to anticipate on that autumn day in 1878. The following morning, Catherine did not awaken. She had passed away peacefully in her sleep, her hands still lying over my heart. The physician stated that her heart had merely stopped. He assured there was no suffering, that it was a calm departure. Yet the tranquility of it was irrelevant. The world had lost a remarkable woman, and I had lost my purpose for living. I survived only a short while following Catherine's death. 3 months. That's all it required. People claimed I perished from a shattered heart. They were accurate. My heart simply ceased attempting. However, before my demise, I ensured our narrative was safeguarded. I recorded it in writing, every minute detail. I desired that our children, their children, and all subsequent generations comprehend how everything commenced. The ranch endures to this day. Even generations later, it still breeds excellent horses. The lineages we founded persist through the efforts of Michael and Joseph. More crucially, it thrives on the principles Catherine and I established: diligent labor, honest transactions, and dedication to something greater than ourselves. Yet what I take greatest pride in is the impact our romance had on the family. Our children wedded individuals eager to labor alongside them. Our grandchildren look for companions who recognize that love is a pledge, not merely a feeling. The enduring inheritance of a collaborative partnership, that's what we bequeathed. If I could impart one insight regarding love and existence, it would be: do not postpone for perfection. Do not anticipate everything to be simple. Rather, seek a person ready to toil beside you. Search for someone who, when challenging times arise, and they assuredly will, does not flee. Seek someone who comprehends that genuine love is constructed incrementally, day after day. Become the individual who halts when you could proceed. Become the person who does not escape. That is what transformed my life. Not luck, not destiny. It was a straightforward decision I took that autumn afternoon in 1878. To rein in my horse, to proffer aid, to remain when circumstances turned arduous. I discovered something superior to what I desired. I obtained what I required: a partner, a mission, a justification to cease fleeing. Catherine needed a strong individual to assist with her loads. I needed someone to bestow my strength upon, someone to construct a life alongside. We encountered each other not due to searching, but because we were both prepared to be emotionally open. That's the message I share with young folks nowadays. Love resembles being present, like a woman with bloodied hands too proud to request assistance, and a man too exhausted to continue traveling yet still halts. Love appears as two individuals too obstinate to abandon the land and each other. There existed a woman with blood on her hands, requesting nothing, and a man who paused when he could have continued. 36 years represent an entire lifetime, a love narrative that resonates across generations.